I've been feeding my husband and his family period blood for a year now. Story time. My husband and I got married on a very complicated note. What I'm trying to say is, when I married my husband, his family was not really into the marriage. They didn't agree with me. Firstly, because of the background that I came from and the different denominations that we went to. Both of us are Christian, but our churches didn't allow us to get married from outside our church. So our marriage started on a basis that most people did not agree with it, but you know how men are. My husband agreed that he would sort it out. My family would eventually like me. And moreover, he told me I wasn't marrying his family. I was marrying him. So I went with the flow. To be honest, I was so in love with my husband, and whatever anyone else had to say about our marriage, I didn't really care. All I wanted to do was just to spend the rest of my life with him. So regardless of how rough the beginning was, we decided to settle and we began our marriage just like that. My husband, who we'll call Zach, comes from a very nuclear family. You know those families where you don't really get along with many cousins, aunties, so it was just his sister, his mother, father, and Zach himself. So when I mean that his relatives did not like me, it was very cardinal relatives to him. As for me, issues came from the church that I went to, but not really relatives, because my family is very dysfunctional and it's not the main reason that we're here. Anyway, Zach and I agreed that whether people were willing to let us get married or they were not willing, would still go ahead, even if it meant hiring a pastor, that none of our churches would get involved. Let me also mention here that Zach is very much a mommy's boy. I mean, he's the only son that she has, so she is very much involved in his life. And this should have been the first red flag for me not to go ahead with this marriage, but you know how love is sometimes. Red flag number one is marrying a mommy's boy, but for me, I love this man so much, and he promised me that he would do whatever it takes to make sure that his mother gets comfortable with me and that we do end up having a happy home. Remember, I come from a very dysfunctional family, so it was very important that a functional family comes from me. I didn't want my kids to go through what I had gone through, so this marriage was very much important, but I forgot the necessary things. Anyway, that aside, Zach and I did end up getting married. We had a very beautiful wedding. His family attended and everything was going on just fine. The preparations were a bit stressful. Not everyone was on board. His family left us to eat because, I mean, they were not really happy that I was going to be Zach's bride. We did what we had to do and we had a very beautiful wedding. Now, you know how they say marriage is not really the wedding, it's everything after the wedding? This is where all the issues started between Zach and I. The first few things that would really irritate me is how his mother was always present in our house. If it wasn't the mother, it was the sister. It's like these two just used to rotate. Once one goes, the other person comes in. And his sister was also old enough. She was in uni, so she knew exactly what she was coming to do. I mean, why aren't you in school? And why is your mother here every single day? Also, I forgot to mention that when Zach and I were supposed to go for our honeymoon, his family decided that it was also the very perfect time for them to go for a family vacation. So his family ended up choosing the same destination as us for their vacation. So the entire honeymoon was more like a family reunion for them, because it wasn't just about me and Zach, it was about his entire family as well. Honestly, this moment was so awkward for me, because what do you mean my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, your sister is here? I couldn't even wear my bikinis comfortably, and I had planned out a whole Shein cut. I had gotten a whole lot of bathing suits. I had planned out my honeymoon, but it ended up being a family vacation, unfortunately. So already, though my marriage was very, very much fresh, I could already see the problems that I was going to face, because why is your family so invested in your marriage? I understand you're the only son, but you are grown up. That's why you have chosen to get married. Anyway, the honeymoon passed. I just told myself to enjoy whatever I could. I took my pictures and that was it for me. I was still very much in love with my husband, so sometimes even the bullshit that he would bring on my plate, I would just consume it. You know, when you're in love, you even tolerate things that you know this could be wrong, but you just don't want to accept that it's wrong. So you end up convincing yourself that maybe it's normal and you just make excuses for the person. So eventually it got to a point where we were married, we were in our own house, but his family was constantly frequenting our home. I had no problem with that, but why can't you also just stay even at least more than a week in your own house? No week literally ever went by without them coming to our house. At this point, we are 1 year into our marriage, and let me tell you that a week had never passed without me seeing these people in my house. And also, to make matters worse, I married the breadwinner of the family, so everyone needed Zach in their lives somehow. Apart from these frequent visits, another thing that would get to me is how these people will visit. They were in my house, it became their house and their rules. We had to abide by what they wanted to eat, when they wanted us to cook, what time I should cook. Everything had to revolve around them. Even the washing powder that I use, they needed to choose it. Zach's mother in the kitchen would always go on about how her son doesn't like that type of food. I should cook it like this. He doesn't prefer it when I do what. It was always as if she married him and not me. One thing I told myself is I will not allow these people finish the peace in my own house. I will make the rules and I will make my own peace. So every time she would say that, I would do the exact opposite. Even if sometimes I knew what she was saying was right, I would just intentionally do the opposite because I'm not going to give her the satisfaction that she's ruling this house. Anyway, months went by and this was getting out of hand. Even people around me, like my friends, every time I would explain my situation to them, everyone would literally be in shock because who behaves like that? Also, just because Zach was the breadwinner, it does not mean that these people were not living well. They were living well off. It's just that Zach had the most money above all of them. And I think as a couple, we were doing what we could because we were paying for his sister's school fees, which we didn't have to before the marriage. But after I got married, apparently Zach was stingy if he wasn't helping his family. So we took up the responsibility of her fees. We'd send her everything that she needed, but still I was never seen as a good wife. To be honest, there was only so much I could take. And at this point, I didn't even have a solution for my problem until one day I was scrolling through TikTok and I came across this TikTok live. This TikTok live was basically a woman talking about how you can cast a spell on someone, make sure they do whatever you want, and somehow I ended up stumbling on a point where she mentioned to say if you want someone to do whatever you'd like them to do, especially in the situation of love, just get your period blood and mix it with the food that they would eat. I know this is absurd, but I was just trying it as a social experiment, to say the least. To be honest, I didn't even think it would work. So one day I just randomly tried what the woman was saying. According to her, every time that you remove your pad, you just get it and then just twist it in the food or whatever you were cooking. And she also mentioned that it was preferable that you cook food that is also red, e.g. maybe gravy. In the gravy, you just squeeze your pad in there or your tampon or whatever you were using, and that would work. Honestly, for me, I just thought she was bluffing. So I said, let me try it once. And somehow that day, everything that I told Zach to do, he did, even against his own mother's will. Honestly, I was still starstruck because I was wondering, is it just mere coincidence or whatever I did just worked? Because it had never happened that Zach did what I told him and not what his mother said. So, just like any logical person, I decided to try the same thing but on his mother and then see if she would control what we were going to eat that day. And let me tell you what, it worked again. Honestly, I couldn't believe what I had just noticed because you can't tell me at this point it was mere coincidence that I tried it on his mother and I tried it on Zach, and for both of them it worked, and the mother was a pain in the ass. So for it to work on her, I knew I was up to something. I'm sorry, but you have to go to part 2.